Okay, so this is a video where I had to kind of go back over all the drawings that I had done, trying to at least two-dimensionally diagram human magnetism, or what I've kind of called the Magnetome project, which is the Magnetome project is this concept of it's the magnetic equivalent or the magnetic version of the genome project. In other words, what is the magnetome? And how do we map it out in the human being? The magnetome being the human magnetism, as was suggested by Mesmer and who knows who else throughout history. So here we have this first kind of drawing. Well, I don't know if this is the first in this video, but this first kind of drawing, what you have is you have two north and south magnetic current flows, which they're just kind of interweaving predominantly in a kind of double helix kind of fashion. And the basic theory is that with this kind of model, if you can precisely map the magnetic current flows along the bone structure, the musculature, etc., you can actually map out the magnetic current flows and magnetic spin forces that shape and form the human body. And this is one way to kind of illustrate that kind of principle or concept. Now, another way to look at the magnetic structure, so that this is two magnetic current flows, north and south, interweaving, crossing the body in whatever ways. But here you have another kind of model, which is similar but different. You have two primary spins, north and south, which what you're looking at it from is this notion of south and north. That from the standpoint of bilateral symmetry, you're saying, okay, one side of the body is predominantly south, one side of the body south spin, and one side of the body is predominantly north spin, meaning that one side of the body predominantly has a clockwise magnetic spin current flow, and then the other side of the body has predominantly an anti-clockwise magnetic spin current flow, and that's what shapes and patterns the body and accounts for bilateral symmetry. Now, you can take this kind of concept and kind of take it another step further, and then here you have quadrupole magnetism, or four spins. This notion of magnetism being based on four spins. And so you don't just have strictly this notion of north and south, but I mean, of course, the fundamental principle is still north and south, but what you have is two north and south in this sense is north is south is clockwise, north is anti-clockwise, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that in this quadrupole or four-pole magnetism model, you have two north spins and two south spins, two that are clockwise, two that are anti-clockwise. Now, I've done a larger drawing that kind of just shows this a little more clearly, and I just thought it was relevant to kind of flesh it out a little bit further. But if you look at the face and you look at the facial structure, you can actually essentially almost see this pattern underlying the face. So, and as you go down, you can see it in the throat, in the shoulders, in the arms, in the chest, the lungs, so on, in the pelvis, in the abdomen, thighs, so on. At every scale, you can see it. And so I did add a couple notes to this drawing, which I think are worth considering too. That up in the head, obviously, you have the thinking, the intellectual, and this is kind of tying back to Gurdjieff's kind of ideas about the human being. In the chest, solar plexus, you have the emotional feeling, and then in the pelvis and the navel region, you have the physical body sensing, moving. What's interesting to note is in Gurdjieff's theories, he spoke of these three primary centers. And if you look at this, in that sense, these would be magnetic spin centers. And these would be the three primary magnetic spin centers: thinking, feeling, sensing, moving. So just something to point out. Another interesting point is that bone formation would occur essentially between or within the magnetic spins. In other words, they would be spinning, alternating north and south, and they would be essentially, the bones would be interwoven, and as well as the muscles, interwoven by the alternating magnetic spins, which I also showed in these drawings right here, or gave a sense of that kind of principle. Now, another way to map it out is a way that, for whatever reason, I kind of started mapping it this way. The human, I think it was, I was trying to figure out the difference between male and female, so I mapped it out from this standpoint of 6 primary magnetic spins. And then, of course, even if you do the 4-pole kind of notion, then you attach to each of these primary spins another spin, and then you would have 6 secondary magnetic spins, and then you would go from there. And I think this is a good model precisely because there's 2 things. It can help to illustrate the distinction between male and female very well, and how they complement each other, which is very important. But also it shows the clear outlines of the head, of the chest, and of the pelvis. But also it illustrates the primary magnetic spins, which are centered at precisely those 3 locations: the head, the chest, solar plexus, so on, and then the pelvis, navel. And they do correspond with those same principles of thinking, feeling, and sensing, moving. And also with the 3 Tantians in Taoism, the lower Tantian, the middle Tantian, and the upper Tantian. So these are interesting points to consider. Now, there's other ways that I looked at trying to map out magnetism. This would be kind of like sort of I don't know exactly how this would be overlaid over the human psyche. I'm still not sure. But this would be quadrupole ovals. In other words, what you would have in here, these little ovals. So you have this larger oval or egg shape, and then you have all these other oval egg shapes within it. And each one of these, you probably can't see it, but they each, they have 4 poles: south, north, north, south, so on. And so that would mean 2 clockwise, 2 anti-clockwise. So it's just another way to try to map out these same principles, but in a slightly, different way, which may actually, in its own way, be more accurate, because it ties back to these whole notions of the aura and all this kind of stuff. But it's, again, what does it tell you? I mean, I think that's my real question. My real interest with this kind of model is how it might help to define and describe the tonal structure of the human psyche. This notion that there's a very precise frequencies or tones okay, so here you have these magnetic current flows. Here you have these magnetic spins, and these magnetic spins and magnetic spins. Now, each of these spins magnetic spins generates a specific frequency. That frequency would be what I call the electrophotonic tonal structure of the human psyche. And so the question would be, if you can map that out, then you can kind of better map out the magnetic spins. If you can map out the magnetic spins, you can map out the tonal structure. And it may, lend itself to many other things. So that's about it. I don't know what else to say, but these are all my little drawings together in one place related to, the Magnetome project, human magnetism, and loosely related to a physics of psychology perspective of the human being. So I just wanted to kind of consolidate them into one thing, and maybe it, will spur some thought, and people can do something more with it. Whether you're a scientist or a 3D modeler or whatever, anything you can add to this discussion would be appreciated. So thanks.